Here we go, and we are live. Welcome to episode 27 of Shifty Perspective. We are joined by Mario Gibney, who was a previous guest on the podcast. We spoke about Bitcoin before, and that was back in September, I believe, when the price of Bitcoin was a lot lower and there wasn't as much media attention. And right now, Bitcoin is soaring and is kind of grabbing a lot of headlines. So, hey Mario, good morning. Right.
Glad to be back, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Cool, thanks. So a lot has changed, I guess, since we last spoke. Maybe it would be good just to update. Well, actually, start by introducing yourself, so anyone who didn't see the last podcast knows who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name is Mario Gibney. I am customer support lead at a company called Blockstream, which is we build tools to make Bitcoin more useful for businesses and everyday users. And yeah, I've been working, I guess, full-time in the industry about 3 years now, and I've been a big enthusiast for coming up on 5 years. And yeah, that's my experience in the space.
Amazing, cool. And I remember from last time you got into Bitcoin when you were away traveling, right? In Asia, is that right?
Well, I was living in South Korea at the time, so it would have been back in 2016. I yeah, just had a friend of a friend at a bar tell me about it, and then a while later, I decided to. It kind of stuck in my mind, and later on, I looked up a meetup group in the area, which was run by some other expats there. So it was English speaking, and yeah, it was pretty much hooked from the start, and that's how I learned about it.
Awesome, cool. So you're based in Canada at the moment. I've heard that it's not the most crypto-friendly place. Is that correct?
Oh, it's not the most, but it's definitely not the least.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm surprised to hear it's got that reputation actually.
I
Like I
think the
mean, it's
banks.
not like what's that?
I think because of the banking system, haven't they blocked Bitcoin companies or something?
I mean, it's harder than most industries to get banking services, but
Yeah.
it's not impossible. It's improved a lot in the last few years since I've been here. Like I'm not involved as much on the regulatory end of things,
Hmm.
but as someone who often helps onboard other people, the services that you have to buy Bitcoin in Canada have improved a lot over the last 3 years. So I wouldn't ever describe it as like a place that's unfriendly towards Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
But it's probably middle of the road.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other day, I actually made a short introduction to Bitcoin video myself, and I put that on YouTube. But I think it would be maybe good. I've had some questions from people in the last few days about like what is Bitcoin and what gives it why does it have an intrinsic value, or is there any value to it, and why should people have give value to that above regular fiat currency such as euros or dollars or pounds. Um, what how can you summarize Bitcoin and explain why you think it is going to be why it is successful?
Sure. Yeah. Big question. Okay, so
Yeah.
the Bitcoin is the world's first digital currency that is not controlled by any central bank or central authority. It's so that's why you'll hear the word decentralized thrown around a lot. It basically means there's no single party that can issue more currency, issue more Bitcoin, or can change the rules on the network. Any changes to the property of the currency has to be kind of agreed upon by the users of the network, and that's a big change. We've had digital currencies for ages, like our banking system has been digital for a while. But
Hmm.
what happens there is that the central banks, for most monies we use are run by governments, and so the state banks are able to, print more money at will. Which, again, it's not a big issue if you're in a place like Canada, where it's generally done pretty responsibly, depending on your politics. There are many who think that any printing is too much. But if you live in a place like Argentina, for example, or Venezuela, it
Yeah.
gets really out of hand, and then for everyday people, the value of their own money gets diluted over time. And there are a lot of other reasons. There's having a type of money that's got a preset monetary policy grants a lot of certainty
Hmm.
that you can't find in other places. And the fact that it doesn't exist in any single location means a truly international global money. So it can be useful for, there's no extra hassle for me sending some Bitcoin to my neighbor here, or to my friends in back in Korea. Like
Hmm.
I the first way I actually used Bitcoin regularly was to do my own remittances. That way I didn't have to deal with bank wires and waiting a week for it to arrive and stuff. It was a bit more of a hassle because I had to buy the Bitcoin and then figure out a place to trade it and save in Canada. But for me, that was fun. And over time, I guess if the services allow you to do that become smoother, I think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. So when you were doing this, was this you were sending to your money that you were earning in the Korean native currency, you were sending it back to Canada, or what were you doing with this?
That's correct. Yeah. And I think it ended up being roughly about as expensive. Cause instead of paying for the wire fees, I would lose whenever you trade currencies, you'll lose a bit of money because you're not going to get a perfect exchange rate. So I think the cost ended up being actually similar. But I could also track it every step of the way. There wouldn't be this waiting for a week for it to hopefully show up, which was handy. So that's what I used it for. It was remittances at the time. I don't know if I'm not trying to say that's a particular that may or may not apply to different people's use cases depending on where the fees are at and stuff. For me that was really I just thought it was very cool that once I had my money in Bitcoin, it didn't exist within any country. It was kind of it was anywhere at the same time, right?
I love that the idea of geopolitical conflicts essentially don't come into it at all because there's no no centralization.
And people also ask where does it get its intrinsic value from, which I always think is a funny question. I don't think intrinsic value is I think it's kind of an incoherent concept. People find value in stuff that is useful to them, and so I guess that was kind of more of a valid question early days when Bitcoin actually had zero value. It was just something you could mint in your computer. But as soon as kind of that got bootstrapped or people were willing to pay for it, then it has value. It can trade at that value. If people find it more useful, they'll and if more people want to use it than there is available on the market, then the value will go up. It's basic supply and demand there. So I think that it's a bit of a red herring to be how can this have value? There's no intrinsic value. People talk about that with gold, a lot of gold bugs. The ones that don't come over to Bitcoin tend to.
Peter Schiff.
He's the other big one. But even if we get a Mad Max world tomorrow, you'll still be able to melt it down and make jewelry out of it. Obviously no one's holding gold right now because they're going to feel relieved that they can make a pretty necklace out of it if the world goes to shit. So I always thought that was a bit of a not a super constructive frame to look at it.
I guess the thing with gold would be, or precious metals could be traded more for other objects in the Mad Max world, which.
But then we're kind of back to that's because you expect other people to find value in it. Yeah,
that's true.
Sure. In a Mad Max world, Bitcoin's gone, but I think we've got bigger problems than that. I would expect.
Definitely. So since we last spoke, since the last podcast, what would you say has been the big driving factor in this current bull market, and why is such a big attention on Bitcoin?
I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't. Anytime the price makes some big movement, there's always going to be speculations about what really has caused it. Sometimes if it shifts, I don't know, 5% in a day because some exchange got shut down. That would happen back in the day. It was obvious, but I try not to spend too much time speculating on what has caused a recent run up. I can give you some of the ideas that are floating around. There's this some people think that this is pretty strong evidence in favor of this halvening cycle where every 4 years the amount of new Bitcoin issued gets cut in half, and for the last two halvenings that is kind of within a year or so afterwards the price has kind of spiked, and the argument there is that just suddenly the amount of new Bitcoin being issued is cut in half, so it's a supply shock basically. There are a lot of counter arguments to that. Suggesting that it shouldn't really have an effect because it's something everybody knows about in advance. So if you expect that more people will buy beforehand, I don't find that. I'm not too married to either of those theories. One in the more there's been a lot of institutional buyers. That's one thing different. Like when Bitcoin hit, 19,000 back in 2017, it was largely a retail-driven phenomenon. Like there were tons of people, like everybody and their grandma wanted to buy some Bitcoin on exchanges and stuff. And that's starting to pick up now, but that wasn't the main thing that pushed us through in the fall. There were a lot of like actually big institutions buying some. And I think the highest profile one was Michael Saylor. I think this would have happened around the time of our last call. I don't know if we discussed it, but for MicroStrategy, they bought like, I don't know, $500 million worth of Bitcoin. And, because they were a company that had tons of cash reserves and just, and didn't have like, just the nature of their company. They ended up seeing a lot of cash reserves, and the CEO basically was convinced that like the dollar is not a great way to store your value long term. It's and bought a ton of it. And since then, it's kind of it seems as though it's they kind of de-risked it for a lot of other companies, institutions. A lot of firms and investment funds have now been picking up more and more of it. So that seems to be what's driving this time. And like, and of course, this is all going on the backdrop of COVID and massive amounts of money printing on the parts of many governments around the world. So that probably
$3 trillion, right?
Yeah, that probably doesn't hurt. But it's one of those things where it's just, there's so many different factors involved. And, I don't want to say with confidence how much of it is one thing, how much of it is another thing, because there's probably tons of stuff I'm forgetting, and I might be overestimating the impact of one of those. So, yeah.
What's the kind of time frame of Bitcoin being mined, like the last of it being mined? Or in fact, probably best, because people who listen, I know there's going to be people who don't even understand Bitcoin, basically. So we kind of like jumping straight into things. It's probably best to explain it a bit. If you want to, I don't know, just the fundamentals of it, and maybe explaining in layman's terms how it's mined and what that means when people talk about crypto mining and halving.
Sure. All right. So before I mentioned that kind of thing that sets Bitcoin apart is it was the world's first decentralized digital currency. So you had to figure out this way, like, how do we make sure everybody agrees on the state of the network? If you have, your traditional digital bank, just that digital bank keeps a record of everyone's transactions, and it's basically up to them to make sure no one's cheating. With Bitcoin, everybody checks everybody else's activity on the network, and you need some way to resolve disagreements. Like, what if two different parts of the network have incompatible states? So one of them says this transaction sent money here, one of them said, oh no, it sent it this way. We need a way to resolve those differences, and that's where Bitcoin mining comes into play. Essentially, if you want to get your transaction confirmed on the network, you can broadcast it, tell everybody I'm sending this transaction, but it's not really confirmed. It's not really official until it's included in a block. So blocks are these batches of new transactions that are added to the history of the ledger on average every 10 minutes. And in order for you to add a block, you have to perform something that's very computationally difficult. You have to expend a lot of computing power, and this is a process called Bitcoin mining. And the reason that it needs to be a difficult process to do is that you don't want everybody trying to add a block at the same time, because then how do you figure out which one is legit? You want it to be difficult enough that they only come in slowly, and then everyone's like, okay, here's a new block, and then you build on top of that one a new one. And so you have these miners performing this service. It's very, very expensive to do. Takes a lot of computational power. They are rewarded for doing so by collecting the transaction fees of the new transactions they've included, and they are rewarded by newly minted Bitcoin. This is how Bitcoin first comes into existence. So when Bitcoin was first launched, every block, if you would mine a block, you would get a reward of 50 Bitcoin. And then every 4 years, that gets cut in half. So then, in 2012 or so, it was only 25 Bitcoin every block, then 12 and a half. And now, anytime a miner creates a block, they get 6.25 Bitcoin. And so this means over time, just fewer and fewer of it gets created, and that way you have a finite amount of supply. So the last Bitcoin will be mined, assuming this, Bitcoin is still around and hasn't, morphed into something completely different. The last Bitcoin will be mined approximately year 2140. That's not that meaningful of a date, actually, because long before then, the amount of new Bitcoin mined will be negligible. It'll be like, 0.001% of the supply, and it'll kind of make almost no difference, right? Mm-hmm. So more interesting timelines are like, around 2 or 3 decades from now, when right now 6.25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes means inflation is around, I think it's 1 or 2% of monetary inflation right now. That's how much new Bitcoin is being added every year. And then after the next halving, it'll be like down to, I think less than 1%. And then another 4 years, it'll be down to less than 0.5%. So yeah, by the time we get to the 2030s, like newly created Bitcoin will be quite small. It'll be like negligible. So that's the more interesting timeline for when, we'll have to see how the security model holds up. Yeah.
Yeah, like what are there predictions about what will happen when all of the Bitcoin is mined?
Well, yeah. So there's mining is integral to the security of the network. If you don't have people mining, then you can just have like then you don't have a way to agree on consensus, right? So, and you need to have a sufficiently high number of people mining.
Yeah.
So there needs to be strong incentive for it. Now, as I said, the incentive for mining comes from newly created Bitcoin and transaction fees. So as the Bitcoin's block reward diminishes, transaction fees must increase in order to compensate for that. So that means that by the time we get to the 2030s, 2040s, we're going to need a very, very high, like really robust demand for Bitcoin transactions, such that there'll be enough demand instead of, from block rewards. Now, we don't really know what's going to happen there.
Oh, hello.
There are a few obvious criticisms of this. First of all, people think like, okay, like you're never going to get enough people paying like, millions of dollars every, I guess no, more than that. It'd be like, tens of millions of dollars in fees every day to secure mining, because I think it's just too expensive. And then people also point out that if fees are so high, Bitcoin would be very usable. So it's worth pointing out that there are a bunch of technologies that are being built right now that will allow people to aggregate a whole bunch of smaller transactions into a bigger one that goes on the base layer. So instead of like, in the future, we don't expect like, I'm not going to be, sending money to my buddy, like $20 for like a dinner he paid for on Bitcoin's like base chain. Instead, like that'll get, what's the right word here? Like layered out.
Yeah, I see.
So, maybe I'll use like, a Bitcoin denominated like credit card service, or I can use, there's a thing called Lightning Network that allows you to send fast transactions without using a custodial service. And so what that means is that like one transaction on Bitcoin's base layer will actually be kind of the sum of like, 100 or 1,000 transactions elsewhere. So even if that transaction costs like $20, that's fine. It means, it was only like a fraction of a cent for all the thousands of other ones that went into it. And so, that's kind of the future that we are aiming for and trying to build, is where, we can have a really, really robust demand for transaction throughput. So mining is secured, and then still a good user experience for everyone.
Is that similar to with Ethereum, how you have other cryptocurrencies built upon, like sidechains on the Ethereum network? Would that be the kind of goal of Bitcoin, so that or are they completely two separate things?
Okay, so there's a difference there. There's a difference between having alternative assets on sidechains and alternative assets on the base layer. Bitcoin doesn't really have alternate assets on its base layer. I think there was a thing called Omni, which would let you do that, but I don't know if it's getting used much. It's getting a little bit priced out. Bitcoin does have sidechains that have other assets on it. Our company builds one of them. It's called Liquid. And that's, it's got the sidechain where you can move all sorts of assets around, and occasionally needs to do settlement transactions on the base layer. And so indirectly, yes, it is doing that thing. I'm not an expert on Ethereum, but this is a fundamental issue that all cryptocurrencies face. There are plans on other cryptocurrencies to move to like, this proof of stake system, or to this thing called sharding. I do not think it makes sense. They haven't been shown to work, and I think they've been very misleadingly marketed. So I have no interest in using a cryptocurrency that operates a proof of stake. I would be very pessimistic about it. The cryptocurrencies that work, to my understanding, use proof of work, which is the mining system I described. And this fundamental constraint exists. You can try and get other assets running on it, but I think there are reasons why it doesn't work as well on the base layer. But yeah, you can move them to side chains, which ends up producing more fees. Yeah.
Okay. How does that differ? How does proof of stake differ from proof of work then?
Well, proof of work is very computationally expensive. Like the security is derived from the fact that electricity is expensive and you need to run a whole bunch of like these machines doing
Hmm.
these calculations, right? And proof of stake was, I don't know if this was the original intent, but it certainly, this is the main marketing point it seems to have, is that it's a way to do that without wasting all this energy, they say. Um, and it's essentially a process where like kind of large owners of the coins kind of stake their coins, lock them up in some sort of condition. And instead of having the creation of new blocks or new transactions be determined by Bitcoin miners, it's determined at random from people who have staked their coins. And the idea is that if you have staked a whole bunch of coins, you're going to want to do what's best for the network because you're going to want your coins to have value. Um, the reasons why I'm pessimistic about it is there are technical challenges with this. Like there are certain types of attacks that that may result in the network fracturing and not having a way to resolve that dispute that I don't believe have been sufficiently answered. Like there's always some solution for it, and then the solution itself is a problem, and it ends up being this. You can get sucked down reading a lot of material on it really quickly, and I just every time I've gone down that rabbit hole, I feel like it never quite gets there. And
Yeah.
now that being said, there are a lot of very smart people who disagree with me and believe that, Ethereum will move to this in the next year or two
Hmm.
and will prove us wrong. And, maybe that happens. But I am currently betting my career and savings on that not happening.
Oh wow. I've locked up some ETH
I
myself.
don't have any ETH.
You don't
I recommend people stay away.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you what are your thoughts on like on the founders of it, and have you like they seem to be very like in the interviews I've seen, is it Vitalik Buterin? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Like he seems extremely passionate and confident about his project, you know.
Yes, I agree. He is passionate and confident about his project. I find a lot of Vitalik's non-cryptocurrency material to be interesting. I think that, and I don't think it was mainly Vitalik. There was a lot of other founders and marketers involved in the launching of that project. But I think they've been very, very dishonest about what it can and cannot do. I think that it was mainly a project to enrich themselves. I think Vitalik, if I'm feeling charitable, I'll say I think he believes what he says, but it's the kind of promises the Ethereum community has made has shifted over time quite a bit. Originally, it was going to be the world computer, it was going to be code is law, unstoppable code, and then they had a few kind of disasters where they realized that sometimes you don't actually. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to get sucked into like trashing them. Like, I mean, how do I summarize this? I don't have any like feuds with any individuals there. Like I've interacted with Vitalik on Twitter now and then, and like it was fine. But I think the most charitable thing I could say about them is that I think they are extremely wildly over optimistic about being able to solve some very difficult problems. Um, my less charitable colleagues will tell you that they are scamming people and are just out to market a doomed project to enrich themselves. So
Wow.
I don't like getting in those fights, and I don't know any of them personally, so I don't want to make any assumptions about the character. But I
Cool.
do not own the ETH, and I recommend people do not. I only hold Bitcoin. So
Wow. Okay. That's actually one of my biggest holdings is ETH. I have Litecoin. Well, I have lots of different things, but mainly like Litecoin is actually what I have the most of. Although in the end, I trade with other coins to stack Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is the end goal for me above US dollars or above any other small cryptocurrency or altcoin, whatever you want to call it. Like I believe.
buy it and hold it, man.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah. Exactly.
your risky strategies, man. I don't like. I mean, I'm not I don't call myself a cryptocurrency enthusiast. I'm a Bitcoin enthusiast. I
Cool.
don't stay away from. I think it's really risky. I've seen a lot of friends get screwed.
Hmm.
by playing around with the altcoins.
Yeah, I definitely lost some money, had a few scams, that's for sure. Like that's the other thing. The in general, like same with Bitcoin. Just the cryptocurrency market seems to attract a hell of a lot of scammers, and
Yes.
uh, I mean, I've been I actually got ripped off of a couple of times. Used to sell buy Bitcoin on local Bitcoins, and
Mhm.
somebody we did a Bitcoin via, I think I bought Bitcoin, or no, I sold them Bitcoin via PayPal and bank transfer. And once they did a couple of transfers, they then did a chargeback, and they got my account closed. They got my actual bank account closed, so they
Yep.
got the money and they got the Bitcoin, which
Well,
was really really shitty.
well, see, yeah, that's the thing. Like with the current banking system, if there's a centralized bank, you can always cancel transactions. Like there's no like final settlement doesn't really happen. Like if you pay with
Hmm.
something for your credit card, you can claw that back a month later. You cannot do that with Bitcoin and other
That's great.
cryptocurrencies. So it's a ripe market for scammers. Like
Hmm.
anyone listening to this, if you have someone promising you outsized returns, like don't listen to them. Like like I think Bitcoin is a good investment, but I'm
Yeah.
not trying to convince you to send me your money so I can like do this investment for you. Anyone who's doing that, like run away. Like it's good to be very very skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the other day I made this Bitcoin video, and I have had when it got posted every hour on one day, I had different comments on YouTube from people saying, "Oh, see, I just keep deleting them. I don't know if they're still up." Um,
Oh, like send Bitcoin here, and I'll send you two back, 2 cents
yeah,
back
or
later. Yeah,
most of them were like, "Oh yeah, uh, I didn't believe in Bitcoin until blah 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 gave me his trading signals. His
yeah,
Telegram is this," and it's like,
which
"Oh,
is such nonsense. Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
infuriating." I also I did have I had Litecoin stolen when um I used Electrum. I use that for Bitcoin as well, and I used the Electrum Litecoin wallet to desktop, and there was a on the application there was a pop up like within the application, and it said, "Yeah, you just need to update." And
Oh, that happened like last year, was it?
that
Or
was last year, yeah, and
yeah, I
it was
remember
a
hearing about that.
lot.
That was a big deal because Electrum is actually
Hmm.
one of the better clients. I never actually looked into what happened there, but that was really unusual. Because yeah, Electrum is generally yeah. I mean, if you need to update an app, like it's go to GitHub, like make sure you're getting like check with
Yeah,
other people you're getting the latest version. Yeah. Oh, that's a shame, man. Sorry to hear that.
it was. I was absolutely gutted just to watch it go. Literally, just went from in the wallet to just to zero.
Yeah.
That was horrible. Um, and yeah, I've had a few things like that, and I'm now very very cautious. And the second I post something like on Instagram, and sometimes if I even like write the word Bitcoin, I just suddenly get flooded with people saying, "Oh, hey, I'm a trader. You just need to send me this." It's like, follow my signals for 10, $25 a month or something, just full of it. So,
Yeah.
what would you say would be the main things to look out for? So, if somebody is looking to get into Bitcoin, or cryptocurrencies in general, what would be the biggest warnings to look out for regarding being scammed?
Okay, well, I mean, anytime anyone else is trying to convince you to send them money for whatever reason,
Hmm.
anytime someone is trying to promise you a fixed return in a set
Yeah.
amount of time, like in 4 weeks you'll get like 40% of your money back, like that's nonsense. As I said before, I recommend like look into Bitcoin, don't look into cryptocurrency as a whole. I really do believe that. It's going to depend on like yeah, I guess like for Canadians, like I kind of know which services I recommend people use. But I guess this is a pretty global
Yeah.
show, so it's going to vary country to country to country. But yeah, yeah, that's it's like don't get too starry-eyed about what's going to happen to the price. Like people will always be able to point to like some altcoin that went up like 1000x, and this is going to be the next one. But they always forget that like for every one of those, there's been like a dozen more that have just completely tanked and are like absolutely worthless in value. So I think it can be really easy to get tricked into thinking like you're going to be able to find the one that's going to moon next, and you're going to be able to sell at the top. Like
Yeah. Where's the
you
top?
shouldn't expect that. Like actually honestly, you shouldn't be expecting any return like within a year. Like I don't I only recommend and help friends buy Bitcoin if they understand that they might need to sit on it for a few years. And like, like you have to be ready to deal with like losing 8% of value over a year and a half. That's what happened to me, like 2017 to early 2019. Like, Bitcoin went out down by, I think it was 85% or something. And it's fine. Like, I mean, I believed enough in the project to know it would make a comeback eventually.
You didn't panic sell then?
No, I like every paycheck I picked up a little bit more. I've been doing that for the last years. So,
Cool.
yeah, like you got to be patient. So like I mean, I guess it depends the reasons. Like a lot of people get attracted to the space because they think they're just going to make mad gains really quickly, and some people have. But for everyone that's done that, there's been people who've lost out. So it's a long term play. This is a project that we're trying to bring to fruition over the course of like decades. So if you have expectations for fast gains, take a step back.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's good sound advice. I just got a question here from somebody listening. They said, with institutions stepping into crypto and both BTC and ETH being low stocked on trading platforms this week, would you say it's transforming from a digital coin more to an investment tool, especially when retail will step in this expected bull run?
Okay. I mean, digital coin versus investment tool. Yeah, there's kind of this big debate over the narrative within the community about, is Bitcoin a cryptocurrency or is it a store of value? Is it better used for spending or for like, I don't see it doesn't need to be one or the other necessarily. A lot of economists will tell you that it actually has to be, but I don't know if I want to get into that argument.
Yeah.
I think it can be both. Like right now, I think it's more useful as a store of value. It's a way of holding your money across time because it still isn't as widely as accepted as we'd like it to be, and there are still challenges with scaling it. So I think right now the main way people use it is to store value for the long term.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually been like that for a while. I'm not sure how much of the recent the recent kind of institutionalization of parts of it, like the fact that you can buy them on more established platforms probably does feed into that as well. Like, I mean, right now there's a Bitcoin fund on the Toronto Stock Exchange that you can buy. And so you don't actually get Bitcoin because you can't withdraw it, but you're basically buying this fund to track the value of it. And that's purely like investment thesis. And so, yeah, as those things grow, that is like, does become more and more a part of it. So yeah, but I'm not particularly bothered by that. I think that people are allowed to invest in it and store the value of it, and we will continue trying to make it more useful for the broadest range of applications as we can.
Cool.
We'll see. Yeah, I guess I have had kind of some back and forths with some more mainstream economist friends of mine about whether or not there's a fundamental incompatibility between something being a store of value and something being a medium of exchange or regular currency. Yeah. Current prevailing opinions in like mainstream economics is that's incompatible because you want to aim for something like 2%, 2% inflation, like value inflation, like CPI, and that people prefer to use that as a money. I don't pretend to understand those arguments well enough to comment on them. But yeah, I think we can try and make them useful for both. That's what we're aiming for.
Cool. I've got another question already, actually, from somebody else, which says, what would be your best tip for beginners? So I'm guessing someone who's never heard or just hearing about it now.
Jesus. My best tip for beginners. Find a friend who really understands it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, yeah. The thing is, though, I had a very clear answer to this like 3 or 4 years ago, which was like, not your keys, not your coins. Like, learn how to self-host your own wallet. And nowadays, I actually am less like that's still decent advice if you're a person like, okay, I have a really hard time answering this question because the advice I give to different people varies greatly depending on what their expectations are, what they want to do with it, how technically savvy they are, whether it's someone I'm never going to see again, or whether it's a friend of mine who I know can come to me for help. Like if there's someone I know can come to me for help, I'm happy recommending our company's wallet, which is a little bit more advanced. But I know that if they never need help, boom, I can just help them out. Whereas like a random person on the street, I might recommend something similar to them. So I don't know, but yeah, maybe this person can give a follow-up question, or they are like, why are you interested in Bitcoin, and what do you want out of it? I can
Nice.
maybe answer that a bit more.
Cool. Okay. Hopefully get a few responses from that in a minute. I think there's a little bit of a delay on YouTube, so
Sure.
they're probably just hearing that now. I'd be interested. I mean, I've been following. I've actually been into Bitcoin for 8 years now, I believe. So like when I first got into it, it was the US dollar value was like I think $5 or $10. And I can remember when I first heard of it, one of my friends tried to convince me to buying some, and said, like I think it was really cheap. It was like 50 pence, which is about 75 cents at the time when I first heard of it. And I was like, why would I do that? And they said, it could be worth, who knows, it could be worth 500 one day. I was like, 500? There's no way this is going to be worth it.
How could it possibly be worth that?
Yeah, like so they said to put £5 in, about $7, put $10 in, and I was like, no, I can't justify that. Like then
that would have been 10 Bitcoins.
Which I'm just gonna get the price up right now.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone, basically everyone's got some story like that. Like, I mean, you were much earlier than I was. I think it was around $400, 400 USD. I think when I first kind of dipped my toes.
Cool.
Or kind of got involved. Actually, no, and then it shot up to like $800, and then I bought, I think, my first few chunks of it at 800, and it crashed down to 600. And I was like, oh, this is terrible timing.
No.
I mean, like it's benefit of hindsight though, right? Like, I mean, if someone were to come up to me today with some investment that was like dirt cheap and no one was using, it was like, it could be worth millions someday. Like, I wouldn't buy it. Like, that's hindsight, right?
I've got answers. Follow-up questions. So it would be,
cool.
I have a wallet. Is it just better to leave it like it is and let it stay there?
Yeah, it depends what the alternative is. I mean, if you've set up your own wallet and you're sure that you've secured like the mnemonic, that 12 or 24 word passphrase, and you don't want to use it for a few years, just don't touch it. Like make sure that you've tested your backup phrase, so that you're not going to want to come to it years later. Like maybe you lose your phone and you go to store the wallet and you wrote a word down incorrectly or something. So if you have a wallet and you've written down your backup phrase, test that backup phrase. Definitely do that. Because often the wallet will let you check in settings if you can still log in with your PIN or whatever. It's going to depend on the service, but absolutely test your backup phrase. But yeah, I mean, like if I don't know what wallet you're using or how you set it up, but if you've gone through it properly, don't touch it for a while. I mean, there are that's safer than most. And not sure I understood the question correctly, but yeah, I think it sounds like you're doing okay if you set up your own wallet.
Yeah, I think just sitting on it and try not to just forget about it if you can.
Yeah. Stay away from Litecoin and all these other ones. Don't try and trade. Yeah.
So, do you see have you got any idea, or what is your belief about the possible top of valuation of Bitcoin? Like, do you think that there will be $1 million Bitcoin in US dollars, or do you think there will be a 250,000, or is there a top? Is it infinite? What it could be? Do you think?
Well, I mean, it's not infinite, right?
Well, yeah, within.
I think if we get to a point where Bitcoin's worth more than the wealth there is in the world, obviously something stupid's going on. I mean, yeah, in the next decade or two, $1 million Bitcoin, sure. That seems pretty plausible. As I said, there are certain things that we are still figuring out. We're going to see if this security model, shifting away from block rewards to fees. That's an open question still. I'm optimistic about it, but if we can get through that, I think Bitcoin will have long-term value. And You know, and like also like the US dollar deflates every year, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
or sorry, inflates every year.
inflates. Yeah.
So, you know, $1 million, you know, 20 years from now is going to be worth a lot less than $1 million today. So, you know, that kind of, as a hedge against that, Bitcoin, if it continues to exist, will likely, you know, gradually increase on the dollar. I don't try and make like top calls, like short term. Like, I mean, I think there's a decent shot we'll get to like 100 grand this year, but I think there's also a decent shot we'll crash back down to 10 and sit there for another year or two. I'm mentally prepared either way. Like, but I don't, we'll see. You know, if we can continue building more infrastructure, if it gets more use around the world,
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. It will expand to uh, you know, so that it can be used by a wider range of people. Yeah, I think so.
So, are you involved in like activism in Bitcoin community of trying to promote it to be adopted by yeah, in other countries and by you know, more companies using its payment methods, etc.?
I don't consider myself an activist. Like I gently encourage friends and family to put a small portion of their savings into it. Um, like I kind of tell people, if you got, you know, I don't know, 2 or 5% of your savings that you can afford not touch for a few years, I'll encourage them to do it. Um, as it comes to activism, like, I mean, I think that the main, like right now, the main thing I can do is help my company build more tools for it so it's more usable. I think there has been a bit of a thing in the past where there's it's a lot easier for people to be evangelists
Hmm.
than it is to build shit that works, right? And I think like especially like, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, there was like this big push to get more and more restaurants to accept Bitcoin and send it, and like people didn't end up really wanting to use it that much. Like there's, you know, this really common story of like a restaurant like, you know, being like, okay, I'll add like this new payment method so that I get more customers, and then almost no one uses it, you know. And so I think right now though, there's a lot of things like there's scaling challenges. Like, you know, last, you know, month or two, there's just been a lot more interest in Bitcoin, and so fees have gone up because, you know, we can't handle as much throughput.
Yeah.
And you know, so we need to continue to develop things like the Lightning Network, build better wallet services, build better, you know, infrastructure like Liquid, like our sidechain that will basically allow to onboard more people. I think, yeah, I think the challenges right now are more technical than activist.
Okay.
So I don't spend a lot of time doing that. I'm more, I want to do what I can to help us build the things that are needed.
So how is your company making this this side chain, and what is working with that, and is this something that is like anybody technically could make something like this, because Bitcoin is it's not controlled by anybody, right? So it's
Yeah.
any decisions are made universally. So is your company are just acting on their own to make something on the Bitcoin network?
Yeah. So it's what it is it's a blockchain that exists kind of beside Bitcoin, and it uses a mechanism called multi-sig, which is a way you can lock up funds where instead of it going to a single owner of private key, it goes to like multiple owners of them. So it
Hmm.
uses multi-sig um, uh, as a way to kind of move Bitcoin from the main chain onto this side chain. Now, the side chain isn't completely decentralized. It's run by a federation of exchanges and brokers and kind of services around the world. There's 15 of them right now, and they basically take turns signing for blocks, keeping the network going. So it's a bit less. It's not as trust minimized as Bitcoin is, but
Yeah.
the trade-off there is that we get more regular blocks and you can use it for these things. Now, technically, anyone could do this. It's just a very hard thing to get going. We've also the code for Liquid Federation is open source. Like it uses a code base called Elements, which we built, and you can go and download this right now if you want and try and build your own federation and run it. It's a difficult thing to bootstrap, but like we're happy if people want to use Elements and kind of build more stuff like this.
Cool.
And so it's gradually been increasing over time. Like I mean, we've got something like I think 2,700 Bitcoin have been pegged into the Liquid sidechain, and people are using
Wow.
it to send you know, Bitcoin to and from each other. And so it actually relates a bit back to your question about like you know Ethereum having other assets on it. Like one of the use cases for Liquid is that it allows for these stable coins like, you know, Liquid Tether, and there's
Hmm.
also a Liquid Canadian dollar, Liquid CAD coin on there, and a few other things like people have just like kind of had fun with like, one free beer tokens, like just playing around with it. But there's also people are going to be able to run securities on here, and so there's going to be a bit of financialization on there. And I think it'll remain yet to see how much of that is going to be used by businesses and how much of it by the end user, because it's still early. Like we're still kind of gradually ramping up usage on there. But yeah, that's what it's for right now.
Where's the profit in that? Like, how does the company charge a fee for use, or how do they make money from this project? Assuming they do.
So like right now, we're still kind of in the bootstrapping phase, so we don't have a large amount of revenue from Liquid. The functionaries, so I told you there's this kind of federation of these different users. They pay us a monthly fee, basically for being the technical maintainers of the project. So we don't directly control the network, but we build the tools, and so the federation members pay us to continue doing that. And then we're also going to be doing things like running joint ventures that leverage a technology, and that's kind of where we should be able to make some money from it. There are also fees on Liquid. Right now, they're collected by an account controlled by us, but we're not raking that in for ourselves. That's used in order to for the peg in, peg out process. Like I mentioned before, that you can move Bitcoin from like the Bitcoin chain onto Liquid, but that requires very large transactions on Bitcoin. So that requires fees being paid. And so, yeah, fees paid on Liquid go to this account, which we then use to pay for the pegging in, pegging out. Yeah, I mean, like right now, it's very much like Liquid itself is a platform, and we're trying to broaden its usage, and then as it becomes more usable as kind of the world's experts in how it works, we will then be able to leverage that to monetize in a variety of ways.
Okay. Is the site liquid.com? Is that?
No, liquid.net.
Liquid.net. Okay.
Yeah, and or blockstream.com/liquid.
Okay, yeah. Bitcoin sidechain for traders and exchanges. A sidechain-based settlement network for traders and exchanges, enabling faster, more confidential Bitcoin transactions and the issuance of digital assets.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Us.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
And so this is another thing as well. Like as more institutions allow you to do deposit and withdraw in Liquid, you can skip Bitcoins. Like right now, there's a big backlog of Bitcoin transactions. There isn't on Liquid. So if you have an exchange that lets you withdraw in Liquid, another one lets you deposit it, you can just send a Liquid transaction. It confirms in a minute. You're good.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's.
I'm going to
I don't know how useful it is for beginners though. I should put that out there. I'm not. If you're just brand new to Bitcoin, you don't want to start with Liquid. But it's an interesting project. Yeah.
Someone's actually just asked on. I think pretty much everyone watching it most likely is new to Bitcoin or has not any idea about it. Well, has just heard about it recently. As of lately, like I've been a bit of an evangelist myself. I've been constantly for the past 8 years telling my friends and family, buy Bitcoin. And I remember like telling my uncle when I first got it, and I said, he sold a house, and I said, put 1,000 from your house sale into Bitcoin. And he said, no way. Why would I do that? That's crazy. And then I looked it up. I went and visited him a few years ago, and that 1,000 would have been worth, I think, 6 million maybe, or something like that. I calculated it roughly, and then I told him that, and I said, but it's still not too late. This was 2 years ago. I said, I still think we're going to see, a 20K. We're going to see a 40K, 100K Bitcoin. And then he's like, oh no, I've missed the boat now.
Everyone else thinks they've missed the boat. I don't see any reason why we would stop where it is now. I think that people could still get in. Just be patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Like I find it really difficult. I get quite obsessed, and it does find it really hard not to let it control my mood, because I've got all these tracking apps, and I'm looking at
the price swings.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I try not to let myself look at the price anymore. I consider it a distraction at this point. That's even worse for you, because you're holding like all these different assets and trying to figure out how to trade between them and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Man, just get in one, just buy Bitcoin, leave it somewhere, just don't look at the price for a year or two if you
I
can.
get up,
You'll hear
coin
about it
market
from other
cap,
people anyways. Oh no, man. It's,
and then
yeah,
I can see all of those, and it goes red or green, and
nah.
like I can walk in. And I was saying last night to some friends, like if
I
it's green, and I go see my girlfriend, I walk into the room, see my girlfriend, and I'm like, oh, it's great. Oh, I
It's
love
not
you.
healthy,
Life's
man.
good.
It's not healthy, man. I I spent enough hours of my life watching a number change on a screen, and I vaguely know what the price is at any point, anyways, because like I'm on Bitcoin Twitter and I'm pretty active on there,
Hmm.
both for work and for uh, entertainment. So
Yeah.
I know I'm never going to be like completely out of the loop, but I really try. I just don't let myself look at any of the sites that show the price anymore. Life is too short, man.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just really difficult.
Yeah, I know.
I've got a couple of questions. So the first one is how often are bull runs generally? Like, is there a cycle? This person says, how often are bull runs? I'm new to this. I've literally just started out a few months ago looking into it.
Okay. Well, okay. Bitcoin's really new. It's only been around like 12 years.
Hmm.
So I mean, like from 2008 to 2009 to 2013 or so, it had like a few kind of like a
Hmm.
few bumps up, and then 2013 there was a big run up. 2013, 2014, and then it kind of dipped down for like 3 or 4 years. 2017 it went way up and then dipped down for a few years. Now it's going up again. So this comes back to earlier. Like a lot of people, it's a popular theory that this is caused by the halvenings,
Hmm.
and that this will kind of continue every 4 years. I think that a sample size of 2 is a little small to draw any conclusions about how it's going to go for the next decade or two.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we might have 2 cycles in the next 4 years. Maybe there won't be a cycle. Maybe it'll just kind of volatility will, even out a bit, and it'll be more gradual upwards. I don't know. Over the last 8 years, this is going to be the third. This is shaping up to be the third cycle that has come every 4 years. So
Okay.
we'll see how that goes. Again, I'm not. I'm not promising it's going to continue like that.
Yeah.
That's what's happened for the last 8 years. We'll see if it happens again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, going by what has happened previously, we are at the early stages, do you think, of a bull run?
Yeah, I think there's a decent chance of that.
Okay.
I'm not being like, ooh, it's top, I'm selling. No.
No.
I'm still acquiring.
Okay.
But
Cool.
but again, I also acquired all the way down in like 2018, like every step of the way. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just the end game is more Bitcoin above everything. So
I just
guess.
anyone who tells you they know what the price is going to do is bullshitting you. Don't expect anyone to know. Anyone who knows what the price is going to do is not going to tell anyone else, and is going to become mega wealthy overnight, selling the tops, buying the bottoms. So yeah. Careful.
That's good advice. Definitely.
I mean, this isn't like Bitcoin in general. Like you have all these like kind of investment fucking gurus out there, which are like, like you read my book and it'll make you rich overnight. Like, no, it won't. Like, I mean, because if you find a successful investment and you tell everyone else about it, they will then use that method and it will decrease the value. It'll like, then the market will adjust to it. So it's just a general principle. Anyone who's telling you they know how to get really rich quick and they have a secret, obviously their method of getting rich is by selling you the book or whatever. So,
Yes.
it's so sorry. I hope I'm not being like a dick to whoever asked the question. I'm just like, I'm not frustrated at you for asking this. I'm frustrated at all the people who pretend they know. So
I think that's so true. It's
like,
great.
If you're interested in this, have a long time frame. Be content setting money aside for 5 or 10 years. And be prepared for it to go way up and way down.
Mm-hmm.
And don't check coin market cap. You'll know what the price is. That's the way you do it.
I've got actually there's another question, but I was just thinking then about what you said about these gurus. That's the I read an article, fake it till you make it, the wolves of Instagram, and it was looking at all of these self-styled not just Bitcoin, but like options traders
Mhm.
who essentially sell. They make money from commission from getting people to sign up on these sites, these forex and
It's
crypto
affiliate
sites.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they rent the. I think it was in the Guardian. They did an article on it, and they looked up all of these people. A bunch of them tracked them down, and they found out that they were renting the Lamborghinis. They were going to empty mansions and getting photos taken, and just and the sad thing is, everyone wants to get rich quick, and if someone comes to them with this thing and says, you just got to deposit €50 or $50 here now, and you'll have a 80% return every week or something, then people are always going to sign up to that.
Like, I mean, honestly, like if I got mega wealthy from options trading, like I would imagine I have better things to do than tweet about it on Instagram all day. Like,
Exactly.
like I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you want to use it to make money, just buy a little bit every month and just forget about it. Check back in 10 years, you'll probably be happy.
Yeah. So I got another couple of questions. One is, I heard about the guy that dumped his hard drive years ago and realized his Bitcoin was on it recently. And there is a guy who has also lost his PIN and only has 2 attempts left. Is there any way to prevent this kind of thing occurring,
Yes.
other than or is it just other than writing it down, or is there any way of recovering?
That is the way that you prevent it, is by writing your PIN down, or your mnemonic down. Like,
Yeah.
if you're self-host, if you're using your own non-custodial wallet, that means you're not storing it with a custodian, you're storing it yourself. You write that mnemonic down. It might be called a mnemonic, it might be called
A seed.
a recovery phrase. These all mean the same things. It's a chunk of usually 24 words, maybe 12 words, that will allow you to get your funds back if your computer shits the bed, or you're getting a boating accident or whatever, right? And that's how you do it. So now, if you have, like, I don't know, a couple of $100, yeah, sure, store it on your mobile phone. Like, write that down on a piece of paper, keep it somewhere in your room. That's fine. If you're storing larger amounts, like above 10,000, you might want to invest in. There are hardware wallets out there. Our company actually just released one. We just entered the foray, called Blockstream Jade. But there are other reputable companies out there like Ledger and Trezor. Cold Card is quite good.
One of these?
You got a Trezor, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. So these are a bit more secure. So if you have, like, over $1,000 worth stored, it's a good idea. Same with them, though. You're going to want to write down the mnemonic phrase. They will give you one. A really good idea is, a couple of friends of mine have a company called Privacy Pros, and they have a product called a billfold, which is basically a metal plate with, like, these little tiles with letters in them.
Yep.
And it's a way for you to write down your mnemonic phrase. And even if your house burns down, or like it floods or something, it's metal, right? So you can still pull this out of the wreckage and it'll have the because I have heard stories of people, like, their house gets flooded and then their paper where they have mnemonic written down is, like, gets wet and then they can't read it anymore. Or a fire burns down or something. So, like, again, those are kind of rare circumstances. You could also, like, I don't know, keep it written down at, like, the safe in your parents' house and at your place or something. There's a few different ways to do it, but, like, keep those words safe. That's the number one thing you can do.
Yeah.
Because then lose your phone, whatever. Just get a new phone, install the app, put in the words, money's still there. For higher amounts, hardware wallet's good. And yeah, get one of those metal storage devices. Honestly, check out our store. I'll show our company here. I'll look at store.blockstream.com. A few of them are products we make ourselves, but we also resell a lot of the better quality products in space. And look up, there's a tab called physical storage, which has quite a few options for better security.
I'm going to do screen sharing now, and so look at this. Okay, so can you see the screen? Is this yours?
Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
Cool, great.
So
nice.
Yeah, if you go to
shop.
Oh, we're already on the shop. Just
so
physical storage. Yeah.
Oh, satellite kits. That sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, we can get into that if you like. So actually we sold it. Yeah, we sold out of the blockchain jades already. We're gonna make more. But okay, so this is a mixture of, like, devices to store your passphrase on and hardware wallets. So hardware wallets are basically, instead of using your mobile wallet. So the Blockstream Metal is my preferred one on the left side there. And so that's you basically get that metal case, and you get a whole bunch of these little tiles, and then when you're recording your mnemonic, you just slide these little things in there. and you slide the first 4 letters of each word, because they will be unique. So if you have the word like, like suffer or something, you put an SUFF,
Yeah.
that way you make sure you have enough space. I know that like sometimes there'll be complaints that like, oh, there's not enough space for all my words, just first 4 letters. But yeah, that's
really
it.
cool. I'm gonna have to get myself one of these, I think.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you got to use your Bitcoin though. We don't accept credit cards, debit cards yet. We will be adding them soon. But
That's good.
If you want to use it, you can go and you can order it there.
Okay.
This is a really great way to keep it safe. We'll be. Yeah, you can see we had a good month.
Wow, out of stock, great.
Yeah, so we're going to be selling. This is a completely different project of ours where we kind of beam the Bitcoin data down from space, and so you can buy these kits if you want to run a node and don't want to eat into your bandwidth a lot. There are a couple other things you're going to be doing with it. So.
Cool, great.
Yeah, again, this is more for advanced users. If you're new to space, I wouldn't recommend you get a satellite kit off the bat.
Okay.
I should say, if you want to get one, it's not the first thing you want to do.
Cool. I would like to do a Bitcoin transaction live in the video.
Yeah,
so, there's a couple of other questions which I'll get to after, because a transaction might not be instant. So someone who is listening right now will basically anyone who's been commenting, if you do not have any Bitcoin, but you would like some Bitcoin, please be honest, because if you do have Bitcoin, I'm not going to just send you some Bitcoin. Let's do your first Bitcoin transaction live. So
I don't have any Bitcoin. I'd like to send you an address.
You don't? Okay.
None. Don't own any. Yeah.
So I'll just I'll let them see. Give it a minute and see.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've got honest listeners.
Might be a challenge here though, because I think if someone doesn't own any Bitcoin, it's unlikely they've got a wallet set up and an address ready to go.
Well, I think that can be
done in
under 5 minutes, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the other questions that are being asked. Sorry. Let me just go back onto the list of the questions. Where's this gone? No idea why. I just saw somebody ask something about morons, and then it went off. So here we go. So somebody said, also, these morons that have made loads of money through trading, showing off on Twitter, they're just asking to get robbed. Okay, yeah, that's true.
That's a legit point. Advertising that you own a lot of Bitcoin is not great for your personal safety.
Yeah.
Because it is self-stored. Someone can try and break into your house and steal your mnemonic. That's a good point.
That is that's something that's quite alarming.
Remember, I don't have any Bitcoin, guys.
Same. I just realized I waved my Trezor wallet in front of the camera.
That wasn't great OPSEC.
Shit. So yeah, don't do I.
Well, it's a bit of a trade-off. If we're having a conversation about this kind of stuff here,
We've also been asked. Okay, so where do we find our mnemonic? Okay. Give it to Dave. Dave, you are picked. Dave Joyce is picked as the person to receive some Bitcoin. So, would you say Electrum would be the best and the quickest wallet to set up?
Depends if they want to do desktop or mobile. But Electrum's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, if you want to set up, if you want to download on your phone the Electrum wallet or whatever you're watching this, I guess it doesn't matter. You download from the App Store or the desktop version, Electrum, and that's EL. I'm going to write it down in here. Download. So it'll come up in the chat. Download Electrum, and then when you do that, you will actually. This person has asked. Their other question was, where do we find our mnemonic phrase? So here we go. You're going to learn now. So if you download Electrum, and then you have to write down on paper, it will give you your phrase on paper when you first start it up. I believe Electrum, you have to set up it gives you an option of SegWit or Legacy. What would you? SegWit. Okay. Cool. And I guess maybe it's
By the way,
difficult because of
yeah,
the.
don't ever share that mnemonic phrase with anyone else. That seed phrase or backup phrase. Don't never send that over by email to anyone. Don't send it as an image. Don't give it to anyone because otherwise they can take your funds. So write it down physically somewhere. Keep it safe. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so
Electrum is a great name for a wallet, by the way. You know what it means?
no.
Electrum is a gold and silver alloy, um, and
Oh,
the first coins. I don't know if this is true, but like it is said that the first ever coins minted were I believe made of electrum in a kingdom called Lydia, which is modern day Turkey. But something
wow.
like 500 BC or something like that. Yeah,
Interesting. Cool.
yeah.
Huh, I did not know that. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, Lydia is an interesting place. The whole Oracle at Delphi where you could go and ask for like advice, and they would give you a prophecy, and
Hmm.
then it would always be like a little bit. The meaning would be a bit different than it seemed. So I believe it was. I think it was the king or the emperor of Lydia um, went to the Oracle of Delphi to ask if he should go to war with Persia because Persia was the big neighboring empire to them, and the Oracle responded that if he goes to war with Persia, he will destroy a great empire. And so he went to war with Persia and absolutely got destroyed, and Lydia was incorporated into the Persian Empire. So the prophecy came true because the empire he
Wow.
destroyed was his own. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah, that was the yeah first ever coins from there though, supposedly.
That's really interesting. Wow, cool. I'm just gonna see if they have downloaded that. There's quite a few comments in. Oh, okay. So until once that's downloaded, let me know in the comments. And then I will send I'll do a screen share and we will do a live transaction. And maybe you can commentate whilst I do it.
Sure.
Mario. Um, in the meantime, there is another question, which is where does that money go? And I guess they mean talking about like if it's lost, if what
Well, it still
happens to it?
exists. No one can move it though. So what happens in Bitcoin is that when you're sending a transaction, what you're doing is you're publishing you publish this transaction to the blockchain that's basically saying, this Bitcoin was controlled at this address, this location, and now it's being sent to this location. And the location, the address, is actually just a set of instructions um, that explains how it can be spent.
Hmm.
And it generally there's actually a whole bunch of different ways you can lock up coins, and like a lot of complicated spending conditions you can do. But the most standard way to do it is basically a set of code that says if you can produce a digital signature for this piece of data, then you could decide where it moves to. And so if someone wants to spend that later on, what they do is they publish another transaction that says, hey, I'm spending this Bitcoin. Here's the digital signature it needs. Here's the data. And now I want it to go here. So your wallet is just a piece of software that keeps track of all of the Bitcoin that have been sent places that you're able to spend, and then it publishes transactions to spend them. So if let's say you have your wallet and it generates an address which is a set of instructions spending it, it requires this private key to spend this digital signature, and you get funds sent there. And if you then lose your wallet and your private key, your backup phrase and everything, there's just no one has the information required to be able to produce the signature to spend those funds. So they still exist. They're just locked. No one's ever going to be able to move them.
Wow.
So there's like millions of Bitcoin that are believed to be lost. Like a large chunk of total Bitcoin in existence are just frozen, haven't moved for years and years, and probably will never move because people have lost the data required to move them.
Wow.
So it never disappears. It's still technically there, but yeah. Like in a way though, like it's less. It's sad for the people who lose their funds, but I mean, like nothing is really wasted because instead, what happens is the actual amount of Bitcoin in circulation gets reduced, and so the rest of us who still own Bitcoin, like our value kind of goes up because there's less of it out there. It's lost Bitcoins can be thought of as a donation to everyone else who holds Bitcoin in terms of value.
Okay. I heard of that guy, Stephen Thomas, who has lost $321 million in Bitcoin and he's got 2 guesses left before he's locked out. He encrypted his wallet, and he doesn't know the password, and it will lock him out.
Good luck to him.
Yeah, he has had a company, some expert has said that he thinks that he can crack his password, and he wants 10% of the funds.
Oh, I think I might know that guy. Or if I don't know that guy, I know someone else who's made a similar claim. There's a guy called J.W. Weatherman, who Twitter personality I know. He sponsored our podcast, and I think he made a similar statement. He's quite confident he could crack it.
Wow.
And I don't know if he can. We'll see. But he's also been a big advocate for people not to use most hardware wallets. He thinks they're quite insecure and there are other better methods.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if you are a person who can do that, that's cool. 30 million for you if you can help the guy get his other 300 million. But
apparently
not my wheelhouse though.
No. Apparently, there's another guy in the UK who threw his hard drive out into the bin and into the rubbish.
Oh, yeah. People still search through the dump for it, don't they?
Yeah. He's offered the council in the town who controls the rubbish site, the tip. He's offered them $55 million to allow him to dig it up.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of these stories in the past. I mean, I have a coworker of mine had something like 9,000 Bitcoins stolen from him off his computer. This was back in 2010 when it was not worth as much.
It's worth 323 million now, 9,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it was around that much because he reused the password and allowed someone else to SSH in his computer. I don't know the details from it, but I didn't know about this till recently. He told me on a call. He's like, yeah, just Google it. And I looked up his name and so.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, there's tons of these stories. But again, at the time, that was worth I don't know, a few $100 maybe. That's not that different from you declining to buy a bunch of Bitcoin at 50 cents, right? So
yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, psychologically, it's different, of course.
Yeah. I'm just going to do a quick follow-up. We've had radio silence, so Dave Joyce, have you downloaded Electrum Wallet? If you are having any issues, please let us know, and I will do it with somebody else, and you won't get Bitcoin. Sorry.
Well, now he's not going to say anything.
Yeah. How are your family with your kind of passion and obsession around Bitcoin? Have you convinced them? I mean, I've tried to convince mine for quite a few years. What do they think about it all? Do your parents hold any?
Well, I think it would be no. And if they did, I wouldn't tell you. We were saying before about OPSEC. I don't think it's a good idea to talk about which family friends of yours own Bitcoin.
I guess, yeah.
I think they're happy for me. I've got a community I'm passionate about, and kind of have a more stable career than I've ever had in the past. But they're not particularly interested in themselves.
Okay, fair enough.
But I don't think you should ask people that question.
I mean, it's not. In my opinion, it could just be though that if somebody's got $50 in Bitcoin,
Sure.
Somebody might have just.
I've given them small amounts. You can get these little coins that have the private key locked up inside, and it's
cool.
Physical ones. And so I gave one to my mom, and that's worth $30 now or something.
Nice.
It was nice. It was worth just a few bucks when I gave it to her, but
cool.
Nothing. It's not gonna be anything life changing for them. My I don't spend a lot of time really evangelizing. What I'll do is I'll now and then I'll gradually draw people's attention to it, and everybody knows I'm kind of the Bitcoin guy.
Mm-hmm.
My friends and family, so they can come and ask. And so if someone's interested, absolutely, I show a lot of enthusiasm and I show them the ropes and stuff. But I don't want to be one of those really annoying people who can only talk about one thing and tries to convince people to do something with their money that they want to. But yeah, there's a couple of friends that I've helped get involved, and they've really gotten sold in it, and they've done pretty well. So yeah,
cool, great.
It's nice. I'll have a few favors to call in.
Okay, so Dave has sorted out the wallet. So I guess the best way is to I will do a screen share. Share screen. And I have a wallet here preloaded with some, I'm going to send $20 or something. So instructions. Would you like to give the instructions, Mario, on how Dave is going to receive his first pieces of Bitcoin?
I would if we were using a wallet that I use. I've never actually used Electro Mobile, so I think I might let you do that actually.
Okay. So if you go onto your wallet, you've downloaded Electrum, you've written your secure phrase down safely on a piece of paper. What you'll be doing now is there is an option to receive. When you hit, I don't know if you're on iPhone or if you're on Android. I'm on Android, so I'm not sure if it's any different on iPhone. But it gives you the option. It says Bitcoin address, description, and amount. And then there's buttons to clear or request. So if you hit the request button, it will give you a QR code and it will give you a address, which is a long string of letters and numbers. So 1J, B2, etc. Copy that address and send it here. I'm not going to be sending, I know it's all public, so it's not like I'm going to be sending millions. So if someone watches this, or maybe the $20 I send now might be worth $1 million. But for now, you can move it off of this wallet. It will be private. So you can just put the address into the chat, and I will send you some Bitcoin. This is very strange seeing the screen.
Yeah, this is the most meta screen share I've ever seen.
Yeah, wow. I'm watching you and me watching you watching me through the yeah, wow. Okay, so once you've done that, you paste that in there, Dave, and I will, in fact, I'll just stop the screen share for now because it's a bit distracting. I don't like that. Okay.
Endless fractal there, man.
Yeah. Okay. So someone said, I've been following Bitcoin from the time it was worth about $200. I regret not having bought more, but it's never too late. Very, very true. I always say to people, it is never too late. And even if it drops down, even if you buy today and it drops down 80% tomorrow, I still don't think I think as long it's just the long term. As long you don't lose until you sell, right? Okay, we got this.
But like another point that might help psychologically with this is that like everybody thinks that if they'd have bought like back when it was like $2 that they would have held it until now. No, you wouldn't have. You would have sold when it hit $10. You would have been like, oh my god, I put in like $100 and I got 1,000 out of it. And you would have felt really great about yourself. And you can go back and like watch like Twitter archives of people like celebrating that like they bought Bitcoin at 2 cents and sold it at 30 cents and made like a killing on it. Like, the odds that even had you bought back then and would have like held through all the crazy swings is pretty unlikely, so don't beat yourself up about it.
Hindsight is, hindsight's a bitch. And the comments are all now. Yeah, the time to buy is always now, and it's never too late. That's very true. Hopefully, we'll have this this Bitcoin address sent through in a second. I mean, Bitcoin's pretty slow, but pretty fast. But it seems like Dave, your use of your phone is not the fastest, maybe. So.
You guys knew he's setting up his first wallet. We'll give him a second.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You're pasting the wallet address. Here we go. Receiving address. I guess there's a delay as well. So maybe my instructions only have just been on the actual video. I'm not sure how far behind it is.
We saw that with the meta video because it was always a delay for the next chunk.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I do have to go soon, so I don't know how much longer we're gonna wait for this.
Yeah, we're normally supposed we do an hour, but it's been an hour and 15 minutes. So it's actually very, very interesting. I haven't even gone into any other topics outside of Bitcoin, which is last time I think we touched on a bit of psychedelics, didn't we?
Yeah, but I mean, I also expect that you probably get people talking about psychedelics all the time in your podcast. So
That's very true. Yeah, that is probably one of the most
change something up for your listeners. Yeah,
definitely.
We can do a bit of that. I don't have to go like now, but while we're waiting.
Are you are you having any involvement in the emerging psychedelic the legal psychedelic market in Canada? Because that is North America seems to be taking big steps.
I'm not directly involved, but I have a few friends who are. There's a company called Therasil. I think I mentioned last time I was here, which had been able to get a few legal exemptions for patients with terminal conditions to do psilocybin therapy and take mushrooms. And now, actually, they have Therasil has trained their first batch of health professionals that are allowed to, I don't know if they're allowed to do mushrooms, but like they're allowed to like possess them and like in preparation for like being the people who administer them. And yeah, a good friend of mine was one of the first 17 people in Canada to be qualified for this. And yeah, I think that's the main kind of work that's gone on there. Therasil seems to be leading the way in Canada when it comes to the legal process. I mean, I think it's going to be very soon that you'll be able to go into a clinic and get like MDMA therapy or psilocybin therapy. I'll be surprised if that hasn't happened by 2025. Yeah. And it's steady progress there. I mean, like it's it's ridiculous it hasn't happened already. I
agree completely.
Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to think if there are any major developments recently, but I not that I know of. I think it's slowly becoming normalized. I think at the time we had our last call, there might have been only like 4 people had gotten exemption for psilocybin therapy, and now I think it's more than that, and it takes less time to get the exemption. I think the first one took 114 days to get approval or something, and so it's it's just becoming more normalized and de-risked. And then I guess of course like in Oregon, like didn't they decriminalize all? Was it all drugs or was it criminalized? So we'll see how that goes. I mean, like I as long as Oregon doesn't completely fall apart, that should be a good like we'll see what the effects are.
Portugal did the same.
Yeah, well, Portugal, that was a while ago, wasn't it? It was like 15 years ago or something. And
it's transformed the rate of addiction in the country. Like they had a serious heroin problem, and that's it's been solved mainly.
That was in combination with some other things, though, right? It wasn't just decriminalization. They also kind of set up clinics where people get like safe access and stuff, right? So I think, I guess I want to be cautious about people thinking decriminalization is itself a panacea. It's not. There are a lot of other things that need to happen as well. But
I think decriminalization is a step towards fixing the problem because it allows people to it breaks down the taboo a lot more, so which then allows people to to then seek help if they need it, and it makes clinics not as much it means that there's easier access because you're not a criminal if you're going to get help rather than okay. So sorry, I've got just been sent. Okay, this does not make sense. I've been sent a okay, I'm going to try this if I can send Bitcoin. I don't know with QR code. Okay, so I've been sent.
I'll tell you what, if you can't, I'll send them Bitcoin through QR code if you send it to me.
Okay.
I can do it quickly.
Okay, I'm going to share this with you on Telegram.
Sure. How much am I sending them?
$20. That's what I was going to send. Let me just get this up now. Okay, there we go. You should have that. Hopefully that works.
Sure. Just give me a minute here.
And then if maybe I'll turn on screen sharing if you're okay, or if you want to not share the screen, that's also fine.
I'm gonna be sending from my phone, right? I got to scan a QR code, so that's the reason. Sure. Oh yeah, the whole point of this is to show people how it works, huh?
Yeah. Oh, I can try and use
he's got his payment hash at the bottom. Just just ask him to paste in the payment hash, and then you can send it from.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. No, that's yeah. Well, that's probably easier because then you can show people how it works on the screen.
Yeah. If you could send me the payment, the address is at the bottom. Is that right?
Payment hash. Just
Payment hash.
network.
Yeah, if you can send that to me, copy it and paste it, that would be great, Dave. We've got another question about Bitcoin whilst he does that quickly. Are you worried that governments could make holding Bitcoin a crime, just like what happened with gold in the US for some time?
Yeah, I think it's something to be worried about. There was a push for some kind of onerous regulation there in the United States. Yeah, I think it's something to be cautious about. I think that we should really try to make sure that people are allowed to hold their own Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I would expect that if a certain jurisdiction does that, you would see a large exodus of people involved in Bitcoin leaving that place. Kind of like what happened in New York back in, I think it was, I don't know, 2013, 2014, or maybe even earlier. They had this like really onerous bit license piece of regulation that basically made it impossible to properly function in New York as a company that had Bitcoin services, and all the companies just left New York. It was a really stupid thing to do. They just drove the industry out of there.
Wow.
And I would expect that you would probably see a similar thing if a country decided, you're not allowed to hold your own Bitcoin. You have to hold it with a company. People who are interested in Bitcoin would probably leave that country. Now, we're probably a small enough contingent of people at this point that wouldn't hold much sway, but I would be very, very concerned for the long-term health of Bitcoin if that started happening en masse in different countries. It's something to be cautious about. And there was a push for really nonsensical onerous regulation in the United States, and I didn't follow this super closely, but from what I understand, it was then they tried to push this through with like barely any time for any comments or questions, and a lot of people ended up submitting comments about why this was problematic, the way they were trying to change things in the States. If you guys are interested, there's a lobbying group called Coin Center, I believe it's called, that does a lot of work to try to make sure that the regulations for cryptocurrency are reasonable. And I forget his last name, Neeraj, someone, Neeraj. Coin Center is worth following. He keeps track of his stuff pretty well. He's a good source for that type of stuff.
Okay, cool. I guess that would be pretty horrendous. I just can't imagine, because it's such a large market now, that would happen. But you never know. Like, is Bitcoin legal in China?
I've stopped keeping track. I'm pretty sure it is legal.
Okay.
You're allowed to use it in some ways. And honestly, I'd be surprised if literally 0 countries try to enact that law. Probably some of them will. I mean, some of them have banned and unbanned and banned Bitcoin back and forth. So, banning people from having like their own wallet that they host themselves. That's less of a extreme case than banning Bitcoin outright. So I expect some places will try it. But I think it would be very, very bad for the industry as a whole if kind of most countries just didn't allow you to store it yourself. That doesn't seem to be on the horizon. I think some places will push for it. I think it's important to push back because let's not live in a surveillance state.
I agree.
People should not be forced to use banks if they don't want to.
Yeah, I agree. I've just got another question as well, saying, are there many places in Canada or the Netherlands, I've asked as well, that accept Bitcoin as payment? If so, how easy is the transaction? Here in Spain, it's pretty much unheard of, at least where I live.
Yeah, it's not super common. Like, I know some places around Vancouver, like there's a chain of coffee shops called Waves that I know they accept Bitcoin. And if you look around, you can find it. But it's not like a super widespread thing. No, like the main use case for Bitcoin right now is not, buying a meal. It's generally long-term storage. It's for investment purposes, for moving larger amounts kind of between bigger locations and stuff, or for helping people in countries escape inflation. But there isn't tremendous amount of demand. A few restaurants I've been to will accept it, and I'll kind of do it just for the novelty. But usually no.
Okay. So I've got the address. It's all working. I'm going to do the screen share. We are going to do a live Bitcoin transaction. Let me just get I'll copy the address up and stop the screen share so nothing else is shown. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Looking at myself on your screen through YouTube.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to. I've just got Exodus wallet on the desktop. I just quickly put that on before. So I have the address copied. So I will then paste the address. Check it's right. There's a tick to show that the address is correct, and then I will say $20, which is 0.000055778 Bitcoin. And I will hit send. Sent. That is broadcasted. If I'm going to stop the screen share now, so that is at 20:43 on my clock. So Dave, as soon as you get look at your wallet and you see it, could you please comment in the video comment section, and we will, we'll see how long it takes. I imagine you probably already got.
If there's a delay, it's probably due to the latency from the video, because I mean, as soon as it's broadcast, it should be visible by his wallet.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that should be in the next 30 seconds, I guess. Next 40 seconds. What are your plans in the next year with I guess depending on COVID and travel and stuff, if things are allowed, do you have any plans to do a Bitcoin tour or anything? I've heard, people who go traveling to locations specifically, like buying their flight with Bitcoin, getting their hotel with Bitcoin, having a Bitcoin holiday.
I don't do a lot of that. I did a bit of that back in the day when I was kind of excited about it, wanted to use it as a novelty, but I don't make big plans. Like right now, honestly, for the next year, it's going to be a lot of heads down, doing a lot of work. Once I get off this call, honestly, I'll be working throughout today because with the recent price action, a lot of more people want to use it, and so as a customer support guy, a lot of work to be done at the company. So I think for those of us kind of deep in the industry, we're looking to build. I mean, I'll do some traveling once. I don't know. Hopefully, if I can get my vaccine in the next few months, I will hopefully be able to, I don't know, do the trips that I planned to do last year, but nothing super Bitcoin related. But we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's been. I've just got a message from Dave to say I've done it. So I guess that means he's got it. So yeah, it's pretty much instant. You are now a holder of Bitcoin. Congratulations.
Welcome to the revolution.
Cool. I don't know if we can wrap this up now. If there's anything else you want to say, or any message you want to give out to listeners, any last bits of advice, or I'll put any links up in the description to your to the projects that you're involved with, and to your Twitter, if you want me to do that.
That's great. Yeah, do all that. I think I've said what I want to say. Thanks for listening, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mario. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved and asking questions. Sorry, I noticed there's a couple of questions which haven't been answered. But thank you for joining in. I've taken a month break because I've had technical issues with the podcasting equipment. But luckily, I've got a set of headphones that works rather than my two audio interfaces that broke. Thanks for supporting it and getting involved. I'm going to do more videos on Bitcoin. I've just made a video about an introduction to Bitcoin last week. Going to do some videos on psychedelics and get more guests on the podcast in the next coming weeks. So thank you. And thank you, Mario. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you all next week.